most anticipated women's Final Four ever. The action will begin at 7 o'clock Eastern Time tonight. South Carolina, Dawn Staley's team has reached the Final Four undefeated for the second consecutive year. They take on the upstart in NC State, which began the season unranked in the AP poll. Meanwhile, the nightcap, UConn, back in the Final Four. They haven't won a title since 2016. They're led by Paige Bueckers, who has stepped it up, averaging over 27 points a game since the start of the Big East tournament. But of course, all eyes on Iowa and Caitlin Clark looking to cement her legacy with a championship this weekend. She's averaging 32 points a game in the tournament and has everybody's attention. Here are Bueckers and Clark talking about each other.
But I think the biggest thing about her, she competes, and she's just a winner. She wants to win at all costs. So I know going into that, it'll be a great matchup.
It's not Paige versus Caitlin, and, you know, it takes the entire team to win a basketball game, and, you know, both of us are going to do everything we can.
All right, fair enough. So those are the stars we'll see on the floor tonight. Here are the stars we have ready to go this morning. Andraya Carter and Chiney Ogwumike are there along with Elle Duncan. Their coverage of this has been so exceptional. And so, guys, while they don't want it to be seen as Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers, I think the world does look at it that way. Drea, I'll start with you. What does Caitlin Clark need to do tonight to get Iowa to the championship game?
Well, first of all, Greeny, you're absolutely right. The world views this as, think of the WNBA, Breanna Stewart versus A'ja Wilson. Think of the NBA, Chet versus Wemby. That's how everybody sees it. And for Caitlin, I expect nothing less than an incredible performance. What did Caitlin do last time out? 41 points on 45% from the field and 45% from three. And it's not like she only took 10 threes. She took 20 threes and hit 9 of them. Any challenge that Caitlin has had in front of her, she has blasted through it. I'm expecting at least a 30-piece from Caitlin. Not to put pressure on her, but I don't think she feels pressure.
Andraya, what's crazy is right now we are on the floor in Cleveland. This is the Final Four. I've played here 3 times. Yeah. And what's wild is this is the biggest stage that as a college hooper you can ever dream of. And to her, this is like another walk in the park. Yeah. I believe Caitlin will continue to show up, show out, but more importantly, she has to continue to get her teammates involved. Yes. Last time out, she accounted for 71% of Iowa's offense. She will have to do that again because they're going up against a Gino Auriemma squad that will scheme very well against her. So the needle, it's going to have to continue to be threaded tighter and tighter for her to be successful.
And that's the thing. What do we talk about, Chiney? Caitlin's shot profile, threes, but also layups. Her shot chart has to have both, but it's the assists. Like, she didn't just have 41 points against LSU. She had 12 assists. Kate Martin, Sydney Falter, her teammates stepping up, playing with confidence, knocking down shots. I think Connecticut will do a better job trying to contain Caitlin and making her kick the ball.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right? Based off of what we saw from LSU, you can't do that again.
Yeah, there won't be a criminal game plan on UConn's side.
How about on the other side, Chiney? How about what Paige Bueckers needs to get done tonight to get UConn to the championship game?
Look, this is a matchup where iron sharpens iron. I think people are really sleeping on Paige Bueckers and how good she has been in the tournament. I want you to look at this graphic because we are celebrating Caitlin Clark for what she's been able to do. 32 points per game in the tournament. Paige is right there at 28. Look at their shooting splits. 58% shooting from 2 versus 56. 37% shooting from 3 versus 36. What I love is that Caitlin clearly does it with volume. She had 9 for 20 from threes. That's different. But Paige does it with efficiency. She has to play 1 through 4, and she's still putting up these numbers, Drea.
Yeah, and the versatility of Paige is what really amazes me. You know, we talk about Caitlin, threes and layups. With Paige, it's threes, layups, and everything in between. Back to the basket, 1-foot turnarounds. The thing about Paige, as we're watching this and her numbers, she put up those numbers in a rock fight against Duke. Like, if we take that Duke game out of the equation, her numbers probably go a little higher. Duke's defense was absolutely brutal. They still found a way to win. My thing, Chiney, Paige has less margin for error. Paige has to be more efficient today than Caitlin if she wants to get a win.
And the most important stat that did not make that graphic is the minutes played. She played 40 minutes. She's going to have to play again the entire game because how many bodies does UConn have, Drea?
They really have like 7.
Yeah, basically.
8 available players.
It's wild that they're in the Final Four right now with a limited roster, but she's still putting up those huge numbers, Paige Bueckers.
Greeny, listen, when you're watching the game, just take a quick second and look down Connecticut's bench.
Sweat.
You will see athletes ready to go, except they're in sweatsuits. Like, just look at the bench for a quick second when you're watching the game.
You're going to see 60 points on the bench.
There's 60 points on the bench. They're missing so much talent, and they're still here. It's amazing.
Yeah. For anyone who's not followed it all season long, UConn has been decimated by injury and, again, still managed to get here because of the greatness of their superstar Paige Bueckers and their legendary coach Gino Auriemma. The early game tonight, however, for all of the people who are new to the party, maybe have jumped in because of the Caitlin Clark, mania, hype, whatever the case may be. In the early game tonight, you're going to see the best team, right? South Carolina, for the second consecutive year, goes in unbeaten. Andraya, are they the favorites regardless of what happens in the late game tonight?
Yes, yes, yes. A million times, yes. South Carolina, they still remain the favorites. They've had the best team all season. They've had the most complete team all season. And what were we just talking about with Connecticut lacking depth? South Carolina has depth on top of depth. If we're talking about looking at the bench, look along South Carolina's bench. They've got 5 starters for any other team ready to go and ready to come into the game. 6'7" on the inside. Their guards have to knock down shots. That's been the biggest thing that's kept games close for South Carolina. But this team, they've been the best team all season long. They've got the most weapons. They're still the favorite.
Look, this is South Carolina 2.0, and it's wild because if you think about historically what South Carolina's done, they played it, well through defense. They also have great post players. This is literally post-player university. Yeah. But where have they improved this year versus other years? It's their perimeter scoring. It's their offense, so they can beat you on the inside. They can beat you on the outside. And then they also have, a coach that kind of is a legend in Dawn Staley, where her players said, if she's not sweating, we're not sweating.
And so then we've got the matchups tonight. And look, let's face it, tonight feels like something of an inflection point for the sport. There has never been this level of attention and excitement surrounding this sport before. So with that thought in mind, I dug something up from the radio from 14 years ago that I wanted you guys to react to.
Obviously, it's not bad because Stanford almost beat us last night. I think the longer we do this, the closer teams are going to get to the level that we're at. And I don't see how that can be bad. There's a difference between someone setting the bar and making everyone else ride to that bar and us all coming down to a mediocre level and pretending that there's parity or whatever the case may be. So I'm hoping that it's good for the game, that players realize how hard they have to work to be like Maya Moore and Tina Charles, and teams realize how hard they have to work to be as good as Connecticut was this year.
It was 14 years ago this week. Chiney, have we gotten to where he was talking about?
Why are you taking me down memory lane? That was my sister's Stanford squad. The year later, I would join Stanford. And the biggest goal for any team back then was knocking off UConn. So, yes, this is a little painful. This is a little traumatic for me because I watched my sister lose in that national championship. But he highlighted something very important for those fans who might be watching today, but remember how basketball was 14 years ago. I feel old at the same time. The difference then is that the stars back 14 years ago were the teams. It was the UConns. It was the Stanfords, it was the Tennessees, it was the Baylors. The stars now are the players. And I think that shows that the game is in a very healthy place. We're talking about Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, even freshmen like Juju Watkins, Hannah Hidalgo. The list goes on. And I think that's why we love the game and where it is today. And that's what I've highlighted, over the course of my career, knowing that, we play for the legacy of moving the game forward, but also players are, they're taking different decisions now. They're going to different schools. They want to be the star. And that creates a lot of different points of entry for teams.
Yeah, I think what Gino said is literally what we've seen. And it was so interesting to me. I'm like, when there were men's teams, whether it was the NBA or men's college teams that were winning a ton, was anybody saying, is this bad for men's basketball? Probably not. I don't know, Greeny, you would have a better idea than me as the encyclopedia of sports for our company. But I don't understand how people thought it was bad for women's basketball. The standard is high. What was UConn supposed to do? Be like, you know what? You can get that recruit so it's more even. You can get this recruit. We don't want her because we want things to be fair in women's basketball. Absolutely not. They set the standard high. Coaches across the country had to figure out, how do we elevate so we can get these superstar players? Now the talent's spread out and the competition is higher.
That 30-0 run in the men's March Madness, that was bad. Yeah. That was really bad for basketball, right?
UConn shouldn't have beat Illinois 30-0. They shouldn't have gone to a 30-0 run. It's bad for the game. Like, come on, be for real. There's just no way.
There was only one time that conversation came up, and it was when KD joined the 73-win Warriors. But that's a whole other conversation that's the beauty of the sport. You get involved in conversations like these. And I think what Gino was saying is, this sport doesn't get better because we get worse. The sport gets better because everyone else catches up.